Welcome back to the Fountain of Israel Bible Study Program. And peace to everyone joining us. Praise the Most High God, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Let me encourage you to have your Bible, pen, and paper as we journey through the scriptures for this lesson about designer genes. Now, this is part 2 of the 2-part lesson, Designer Genes. We are dealing with creation. And we're refuting these ideas that people think just because you believe in the Bible, you don't believe in science. And I'm here to tell you that there is some science in the Bible. Now, where we last left off, we were dealing with Leviathan. Yes, Leviathan. A fire-breathing dragon. And a lot of people have a hard time wrapping their head around the idea. But the Bible clearly describes it in Job 41. He clearly describes Leviathan. And we were looking at all the characteristics. And there is no animal today on the face of the earth that can fit this description. And yet, the Lord said that, look at Behemoth, whom I created with you. And then in the very next chapter, and still talking to Job, he was describing Leviathan. So these two massive creatures did indeed walk with man on the earth. Now many will say, well, wait a minute, Robert. Wait a minute. Okay, I'll go with you that these are dinosaurs. Okay, great. But are you telling me that these huge, monstrous dinosaurs went on the ark with Noah? Well, my question to you would be, who said that they were fully grown? Could have been simply babies. Makes for a lot more room now, doesn't it? Now again, we did not eat these animals before this, before the flood. We did not eat flesh. So, there was no fear of man and fear of us with these particular animals. So, what we have to understand is that, in fact, dinosaurs did roam with us. And we have to wrap our head around that. And I know that's hard for some people to swallow. And we could have what we would think would be dinosaurs today. You have to understand, pre-flood conditions. Well, Robert, what does that mean? Well, can we imagine a world where there's at least 50% more oxygen? Do we not have reptiles today that we know continues to grow for as long as they live? So, what if the environment was zero pollution and 50% more oxygen? It will keep growing. It will continue to grow and grow and grow. So everything got gotten a lot bigger. Before entropy and before death was put on the table, didn't we as humans live a lot longer before the flood? 200, 300, 400, 500 years? Even Methuselah at 969 years? Because the conditions were ideal. Let's not forget that. The conditions were ideal. We understand in part 1 that we had a canopy above us, around the earth, where there was this rich, plush environment. And before the fountain of the deep opened up, and the fountains from the heavens opened up, it was pristine, almost like a fishbowl. We were in a fishbowl type of environment. Then the heavens opened up, and we look at the account in Noah, and it flooded down. And that canopy was no longer there anymore. So now more of the sun's rays get in and does damage to us. So we have to understand these things. Don't let someone intimidate you simply because you choose to believe the Bible. Now again, I know that other people will not see this my way, or see this as a young earth. And one of the main reasons why people will not see this as a young earth is they let one word trip them up. One word. Now they look into evolution and they look at, well, it's got to be millions and billions of years, and what about the gap theory? And we dealt with some of that. But one word trips them up. And that word is simply replenish. But let's look at this. Let's look at this word replenish. Now the word replenish occurs 7 times in the King James Bible. And it's in Genesis 1 and 28, and again in Genesis 9 and 1. And both times it is in the imperative. 5 times, and 3 major prophets in the passive and causative forms. So does the Hebrew original in these cases really mean refill? Let's examine it. Let's see, does replenish actually means refill? But before we get into the Hebrew, we must ask why the KJV translators use the verb replenish. An examination of the Oxford English Dictionary shows that the word was used to mean filled, simply filled, from the 13th to the 17th century, and King James is in the 16th century. So, it just simply meant filled from the 13th to the 17th century. In no case quoted in these 5 centuries does it unambiguously mean refill. At no time between the 13th and 16th century did it ever mean refill. It just means to fill. That's it. That's why people have the gap theory. They say, well, when the Lord said replenish, that implies that there was something there before. Well, let's take a look at this. Now, the Oxford English Dictionary defines replenish as having 10 meanings throughout its history. Let's look at the 10 meanings of replenish. Now, replenish. This is from the Oxford English Dictionary. First explanation. Replenish as the adjective means fully stocked, provided, supplied. B, it means filled, pervaded. C, physically or materially filled. D, full or made full. Past tense. The second definition, the second entry for replenish means E, make full, fill, stock with, as in this man made the new forest and replenished it with wild berries. That's E. Definition F, inhabit, settle, occupy the whole of. G, fill with food, satiate. H, fill, space, fill with. Fill it as in a heart, fill with a feeling, fill. Now, this is the 9th definition, the 9th entry. It means to fill up again, fill up. And J, the 10th definition, become full, attain to fullness. Only one entry, one definition meant again. 9 meant to fill, just to simply feel. Okay? That's what it meant. It's also as if you said, if someone asks you how hungry you are and you say, I'm replete. It doesn't mean you replete, it means you're full. Okay? So note that only the 9th entry includes the idea again. This usage first appears in a poem in 1612. Only the year 1612 is anywhere near the date of the KJV 1611, and it's a poetic use. The Hebrew original of Genesis 1 and 28 is not poetic. All other uses range from the 17th to the 19th century when it tends to die out in normal writing. There is one form of evolution that I do believe in, and that is the language, the evolution of language. Language changes, the meanings change over time. So when we say that we are happy today, we simply say we're happy. We don't say that we are gay, because it has another connotation to it. But there was a time where happy meant gay. When we say there's a piece of wood, we say a piece of wood. We don't say punk. But there was a time where a piece of wood, it was punk. The evolution of language has taken over in our doctrine. And so we have a lot of misinterpretations of the meanings. Languages do, in fact, evolve. Now, let me just summarize this. The word translated replenish from the KJV simply means fill in the Hebrew. It simply means fill. So when the Lord said, go and replenish the earth, he just simply said, go and fill the earth. In the English of King James' day, replenish also usually meant fill, not refill. It just simply meant fill. That's it. F-I-L, fill. Now the word replenish, therefore, cannot be used to support ideas about a previous creation which was destroyed. In any case, such erroneous theories, invented in response to the millions of years idea, must hold to the unbiblical notion that there was death and suffering before Adam's sin. So we have to understand the implications when we say that. When we say, well, there was a world before and all that died out, and a lot of people explain, they say, well, that's why we have the dinosaurs and the fossil fuels, because they assume it takes millions and millions and millions of years for dead dinosaurs to form fossil fuels. I would say it would take pressure from a global flood. Pressure. But for them, it has to take millions and millions of years. So that's how we got the dinosaurs, and that's how we got our fossil fuels. I beg to differ. But consider it for yourself. As I said at the outset of this lesson, this does not threaten your salvation. It is simply food for thought. Now let's continue in our lesson. We'll pick it up in Psalm 135. And we're going to take a look at the hydraulic cycle. We're going to see what the Bible says about the hydraulic cycle. Again, as I said multiple times in the first part of the lesson, that the Bible is not a book of science. It is a book of history and prophecy. It contains bite-sized morsels of science. Psalm 135 and 7. Psalm 135 and 7. When you get there, proceed.
He causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth. Mm-hmm. He makes lightning for the rain. Mm-hmm. He brings the wind out of his treasuries.
Okay, he causes the vapors to ascend from the earth, from the end of the earth. He makes lightning for the rain, and he brings the wind out of his treasuries. Let's go to Jeremiah 10 and 13 and look at this a little bit further. Jeremiah 10 and 13. And when you get there, brother, go ahead and read.
When he utters his voice, there is a multitude of waters in heaven. And he causes the vapors to ascend from the ends of the earth.
Okay.
He makes lightning for the rain. Mm-hmm. He brings the wind out of his treasuries.
Okay, so we're having a little bit of an idea here of the hydraulic cycle. We're talking about vapors. We know that we have vapors and we know about precipitation. And these verses, we're looking at the hydraulic cycle. Okay, the worldwide process of evaporation, translation aloft by atmospheric circulation, condensation with electrical discharges, and precipitation. We're looking at the cycle of water. How it goes up, comes down, binds in the clouds, and comes right back down. And the cycle goes over and over again. The Bible mentions it. Okay, we're merely understanding. We're merely discovering what the Lord has already done. Job 36. Job 36. We want to look at the circulation of water. The circulation or the hydraulic system. Job 36. Job 36 and 27. Job 36 and 27. And when you get there, read on.
For he draws up drops of water.
Okay.
Which distill as rain from the mist.
Which distills as rain from the mist. Go ahead.
Which the clouds drop down.
Which the clouds drop down. Go ahead.
And pour abundantly on man.
That's our rain. Go ahead.
Indeed, can anyone understand the spreading of the clouds?
Can we understand that? Go ahead.
The thunder from his canopy.
Okay, so we're talking about thunder and lightning and how the water goes back up into the cloud. How does a cloud contain water and not be weighed down? We're merely discovering what's already there by the Lord. The Bible describes this. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 1. Ecclesiastes 1 and 7. Ecclesiastes 1 and 7. When you get there, brother, go ahead and read.
All the rivers run into the sea, yet the sea is not full. To place from which the rivers come, there they return again.
All right, so he said all the rivers run into the sea. We find that today, do we not? Yet the sea is not full. So the sea never becomes overflowing. Okay, obviously, if a tsunami, comes in, that's basically an earthquake underneath the sea. But that doesn't mean that the sea is being overfilled by the rivers. So, yet the sea is not full. To the place from which the rivers come, there they return again. It is a cycle. This is our hydraulic cycle. from the seas to the rivers and so on and so forth. Isaiah 55. We're going to go to Isaiah 55 and 10. Isaiah 55 and 10. And when you get there, brother, go ahead and read.
For as rain comes down, the snow from heaven, and do not return there, but water the earth.
But water the earth, go ahead.
And make it bring forth a bud, that it may give seed to the sower, and bread to the eater.
Okay. Now, this is just another process, you know, for as the rain comes down and the snow from heaven, and do not return there, but water to the earth, and make it bring forth and bud. So we need this hydraulic cycle because obviously it waters plants and vegetation so that we may have something to eat on that. And it makes bring forth and bud, that it may give seed to the sower and bread to the eater. Okay, the Bible refers to a surprising amount of water that can be held as condensation in clouds. Okay, and it's held there until the cloud releases it onto the earth. Job 26. Now I hope you guys understand something. Job knew a lot, because a lot of our scriptures are coming from Job, which is one of the oldest books in the Bible. And he understood, or at least heard when the Lord was talking to him, at least heard about a lot of things of the world around him. So he had some sort of understanding, or at least he wondered about it. Job 26 and 8. Job 26 and 8. And when you get there, brother, go ahead and read.
He binds up the water in his thick clouds.
So we knew that water was in clouds. We knew that clouds contained water. Go ahead.
Yet the clouds are not broken under it.
So the water that is in the clouds, it does not weigh down the clouds. It does not weigh them down. Have you ever wondered just how amazing it is that the clouds, when it is raining, and they're just raining, and when it's a constant rain, how are the clouds constantly producing this water so fast and just constantly pouring down? It's an amazing thing that the Lord has done. It is amazing. But if you've ever been on a plane and you're flying through the clouds, I mean, you pass right through it. It's nothing. But through the wisdom of our designer, he made this hydraulic cycle possible. And we merely understand it. We didn't create it. We just understand it now. We just discover something that was already there. It was by design. That's what this is about. Job 37 and 11. Talking more about the water and clouds. Go ahead, Job 37 and 11.
Also with moisture, he saturates the thick clouds. He scatters his bright clouds.
There it is. So this is what we're talking about. So the hydrothermal vents are described in 2 books in the Bible, written before 400 BC, which is more than 3,000 years before their discovery by science. So these things are happening well before we discover it, and then all of a sudden, man, and all his pride, when we find something or figure something out, we think we did something. And we forget that we just merely discovered it. It was already there. We just found it. Or we just figured it out. That type of thing. That is amazing to me. But when it comes to the things of evolution and it comes to the things of science, there is no argument about science. As I said in the first part, the biggest trick that evolution has done on man was made itself synonymous with science. That's what we have to understand. We need to understand that the scientific method itself is simply testable, repeatable, and observable. Now, we understand that in the beginning, God created. We cannot see it, test it, or repeat it. But think of what evolution suggests. It, too, cannot be seen, tested, or repeated. And is it not inconvenient that there are no transitional forms in the fossil record? Nothing. No evidence that one thing transformed to something else. You would think after millions of years, one thing died in mid-transformation. You would think that there's something there, but they believe it on faith. Evolution and science is not the same. We admit what we believe is faith, but we have evidence. Consider, we say that there was a global flood. So you have to ask yourself, what would you find? If there was in fact a global flood, what would you find? Bones? Fossils? You said it covered the whole earth. Even in the Noahic account, in this flood, they said that the waters covered the mountains. So let's consider what is in the sea. Sea creatures? Seashells? What has archaeologists found in mountains? Sea creatures? Seashells? So, there is a basis as to why we believe what we believe. The Bible has only been proven over and over and over through archaeological facts, geological facts, and historical facts. It is what it is, and it is true. For at least there is evidence for what we believe. There is a basis for our belief system. Evolution, on the other hand, complete fantasy. Complete fantasy. So we must be careful. Let us continue. In Genesis 7, and we'll pick it up at verse 11. Genesis 7 and verse 11. When you get there, brother, go ahead, read.
In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the 2nd month, in the 17th day of the month, on that day all the fountains of the great deep were broken, and the windows of heaven were open.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about. In the first part of the lesson, we had a design of the earth, poorly drawn by myself, but it was design of the earth, and it had a canopy around it, and we have to understand that the water came from two places. I want you to get the picture. The water came from two places. Now, the fountains of the great deep opened up. Now, this is a time where it did not rain before. It had not rained before. There was no need for it. But the fountains of the great deep, the fountains in the crust of the earth, waters came up, rushing, breaking forth out of the earth. Steam, that's how we have geysers today. Okay? Steam breaking up, tectonic plates moving and shifting right now. So, how do you kill some animals that were in the sea? Extreme heat. That's how you can kill them. Then, not only is the water rushing up from the earth's crust all over the world, the fountains of the great deep are opening up, coming down. So you have the waters from the flood, from the canopy that was suspended above us. In other words, our fish tank is broken. So these waters come down, and then the waters out of the earth come down. Everything being destroyed. Why? Because there would be no escape. And entropy through sin had entered in. So everything dies. Nothing can escape. Except Noah and his family, which were on the ark. And so what do you have? You have large animals. As the waters begin to rise, you have large animals trying to seek higher ground. And the faster animals will get further up the mountain, if you will. And so when we look down the geologic column, what do we see? Various animals, the ones who are a little faster and the ones who can climb a little better, died a little higher on the mountain. That's it. So we can look at how these things work just by the evidence that is presented to us. My point is, we have a basis for what we believe. And the difference is, when you believe in creation, you believe that there is a designer for all design. You believe that there is a creator for all creation. Whereas evolution, you can make the story up as you go. With very little evidence to support what you believe. I asked a question once before about, well, there are no transitional forms in the fossil record, and I received an answer, and that answer was spontaneous equilibrium. Now I admit I scratched my head on that, and I thought, well, what exactly is spontaneous equilibrium? Well, instead of it evolving, It just was one animal and out popped another one, the different kind. So this is what they're left to because we refuse to believe that there is a designer. That we refuse to believe that there is Yahweh, that there's a God, there is the Most High, that there is Yeshua, that someone, a designer, created everything. Why? Because you would have to be accountable to Him if you acknowledge Him. Here's the bad news. You're going to be accountable to Him if you don't acknowledge Him. That's the bad news. So let's take a look a little further. And by the way, the spontaneous equilibrium, by the way, we've never witnessed one animal popping out of another animal. A different animal, a different species. A cow will never pop out of the egg of a chicken. It just won't happen. It'll never happen. It just will not happen. I'm certain of it. Let's look at Ecclesiastes. I'm sorry, did we look at Job 38 and 16? Job 38 and 16. Job 38 and 16. Let's take a look at that. Job 38 and 16. And when you get there, brother, go ahead and read. Job 38 and 16.
Have you entered the springs of the sea? Or have you walked in search of the depths?
All right. Now he said, "Now have you entered the certain?" So he's asking Job, "Have you entered the deep, like of the ocean, the ravines, those caverns, and things like that are in the ocean?" So the Lord is letting them know that they're there. He was asking a bunch of tough questions. Again, this is when Job got a little beside himself and got a little indignant with the Lord, and the Lord started asking him a series of questions. And these are a couple of the questions that he was asking Job. Okay. Now, one of the other things that we discovered in science says that the wind moves in circular patterns. The Bible mentioned that. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 1 and 6. Ecclesiastes 1 and 6. And we're going to look at what Solomon said about the wind. Ecclesiastes 1 and verse 6. When you get there, brother, go ahead and read.
The wind goeth toward the south.
So it goes toward the south.
And turneth about in the north.
Okay, then it whips around and goes towards the north. Go ahead.
It whirleth about continually.
Whirleth about continually, and then what?
And the wind returneth again according to his circuit.
A wind pattern. We discover that in science, and we have it right here, mentioned in the Bible. So there's no mystery there. So does your faith and science, are they compatible? Yes, they are compatible. We have no problem with science. No problem. The issue comes with evolution. Okay? It means, do you have an evolutionary worldview or do you have a biblical worldview? It's just a matter of worldview. Science is right there in the middle, and you choose how you want to look at that science. We all have the same evidence. Don't forget that. Oh, Christians, they don't believe in the Bible. We all have the same bones. It's how do you view those bones? We look at design, we look at creation, and we say, hey, there must have been a creator. But then they look at design and they say, hey, must have been a Big Bang. There's a difference. And the difference is simply world view. And we're talking about the world, we're talking about the cycles of the wind. We're talking about biology, and we're talking about astronomy, we're talking about all these different things, and we never really got into anatomy. It's even more complex inside our bodies, which further begs for a creator. And the Lord himself said he formed you in the womb. It further begs for a creator. So it's just a matter of perspective. It's a matter of world view, to be more precise. It's a matter of world view. But it will all come to an end. I submit to you that there is a beginning, time, space, and matter. And then there is an end to time, space, and matter. And all therein Let's look at Psalm 136, and we'll pick it up at verse 3. Psalm 136 and verse 3. When you get there, proceed.
Oh, give thanks to the Lord of Lords, for his mercy endureth forever.
Come on.
To him alone doth the great wonders, for his mercy endureth forever.
He has done it all. To him alone doeth great wonders, for his mercy endureth forever. Continue.
Mercy endureth forever. Oh, sorry. To him that by wisdom made the heavens,
Because
for his mercy endureth forever.
he made the heavens, before his mercy endureth forever. 6.
To him that stretched out the earth above the waters.
Above the waters. Now you say, well, how can the earth be above the waters? Well, we notice that there was a canopy at first around the earth, and that canopy is gone, and that's how we got the Noahic flood. Go ahead.
For his mercy endureth forever.
7.
To him that made great lights.
He made the great lights. Which are they? Sun, moon, stars. He made the great lights. Go ahead.
For his mercy endureth forever.
Okay. And what did he do with them? Verse 8.
The sun to rule by day.
To rule by day. Go ahead.
For his mercy endureth forever.
Okay. And 9.
The moon and stars to rule by night. For his mercy endureth
He
forever.
created it all, brothers and sisters. He did it all. He did the sun, the moon, the stars. He created the heaven and its great expanse. He did it all. He created you and I. Everything that we discover. All the laws that we are governed by in this universe, he set them up. For if there is a law, there's a lawgiver. If there is design, there is a designer. And lastly, if there's creation, there's a creator. And we have to wrap our heads around that. Those who want to know the Lord. Let's go to 2 Peter. 2 Peter 3. And pick it up at verse 3. 2 Peter 3 and verse 3. When you get there, go ahead and read.
Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers.
There will be scoffers, because there are scoffers today. Okay? You and I were crazy. One, we believe in a God. God we never seen. God we never spoke to him audibly face to face. You believe in the words in this book that man wrote. You're crazy. You're talking about, oh, Jesus is coming back. He's coming back. Oh, he's coming. He's been coming back for 2,000 years. You have scoffers. Oh, you believe in creation? What do you mean? You believe in 6 literal days that God created everything in 6 literal days? Brothers and sisters, there are scoffers. There always have been. There always will be. Just the difference is there will be more today. More in the last days. Is not your faith coming under attack? That's how it is. In the last days there shall come. In the last days, scoffers doing what?
Walking after their own lust.
After their own desires, their own thoughts. Today, man, those who say they're atheists or agnostics, I know agnostics say they don't know. Atheists say there is no God. Okay? They walk after their own lust. And what they do is they worship at the altar of intellect. They pride man's intelligence over anything else. Professing to be wise, they became fools. That will happen today. We run to university. We run to the altar of Darwinism because that explains who I am. That's where I come from. Now, we come from a primordial ooze. And then we sprang forth life. Maybe a single cell organism. And then it came forward. And then maybe it's a fish or a frog or a duck or a cow or a gorilla or a tiger. And eventually, it became man. It began to walk upright. And in short, brothers and sisters, what they are saying after worshiping at the altar of intellect is that we came this way. They say that it is from goo to you by way of the zoo. That's what they believe. We have to understand that this is not the case. The Bible over and over and over says, after its kind, after its kind. Now let me ask you, can we trust that? Can we trust that a canine will probably come out of a canine? Can we trust that? Can we trust that a bird will probably come from a bird? Or a fish will come from a fish? Can we trust that? The Bible says that. We can trust that. We can lay that foundation. We didn't come from animals. Well, where did everyone come from? There's Cain and there's Abel. Where did they come from one another? After its kind. It says that laying with an animal is an abomination, so we couldn't have come that way. So it's up to you. Either you come after your kind, either you came and your ancestors came from another human created by God, or you came from soup and goo, randomly, by accident. The choice is yours, brothers and sisters. But at the end of the day, this will soon end. This too, this life, shall pass. Let's look at this. Now, walking after their own flesh, verse 4.
And saying, where is the promise of his coming?
Oh, Jesus is coming? Really? Where is he? Where's Jesus? I'm here, Jesus, scoffing. I'm here, where's Jesus? I don't see Jesus. Scoffing. Go ahead.
For since the fathers fell asleep,
since they died long ago, they've been scoffing. Go ahead.
All things continue as they were from the beginning of creation.
And everything that's in it. From the beginning of creation. In the beginning of what time? God created the heaven and the earth. Ever since man was on the earth, there always been some scoffers. There's always been someone who did not believe. Obviously, Adam and Eve did not believe that God said, if you eat of this fruit, if you believe the garbage that the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is telling you, you will die. They didn't believe that. Even when God told Abel, if you do well, will you not be accepted? Speaking of his sacrifice. He didn't, and obviously killed his brother. Ever since the beginning, there's always been scoffers. Since the beginning of creation, someone not believing, or someone disobeying, or someone having an issue with the way things are, with the way things work. Since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of creation. Verse 5.
For they willingly are ignorant.
Okay, you can look at the evidence today. I can present to you all the evidence we want, and we'll just argue over the evidence. That's all we'll do. It is not the evidence. It is the worldview. I told you before, we're looking at the same bones. We're looking at the same fossils. And we have two different worldviews about the same fossils. So it does not matter. For this, they willingly are ignorant of, go ahead,
that by the word of God, the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water, and in the water.
And in the water. Below and above. The earth stood there. There was water in the crust of the earth, and there was water above the earth. Okay, so even they had an understanding of this. Okay, Revelation 21. And I said before, there is a beginning and there is an end to all this. All the laws that we're governed by now will not mean anything. They will come to an end at the end of the millennium. Revelation 21, and we'll pick it up at verse 1 and we will wrap up. Revelation 21 and verse 1. And when you get there, brother, go ahead and read.
And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away.
Okay.
And there was no more sea.
No need for it. There'll be no more sea. Go ahead.
And I, John, saw the holy city,
What was that?
New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven.
Wait a minute. So, the city of New Jerusalem now, on a side note, I understand that our lesson is about designer genes. We're dealing with creation. But on a side note, because I never know when a new person watching us for the first time will get a little bit of understanding. So if you're a new person, you're watching us for the very first time, you've probably been told that the great reward is that you get to go to heaven and you get to live in a new city. He just read where it is coming from. So do you go up to New Jerusalem? Or does Jerusalem come down? Start that verse again, verse 2, brother.
And I, John, saw the holy city.
What's that?
New Jerusalem.
Doing what?
Coming down from God out of heaven.
Keep going.
Prepared as a bride adorned for her husband.
Verse 3, brother.
And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men.
See, there is the reward. We're still on track with the lesson. We're still on, because there is going to be an end to all this. There will be an end to all these things that we are governed by right now. Now, he said the tabernacle of God is with men. This is what the Lord wants to do. To eventually live with men, but with other immortals. When you get that change in body. God with gods. King of kings, Lord of lords. The brethren, first fruit. This is what the Lord wants to do. He wants to dwell with men, but he will not dwell with sinful man. You have to be changed. He will not dwell with flesh in eternity. It will not matter. Now, I mentioned it in eternity. Now, understand this. As I alluded to earlier, what will things like time matter in eternity? It will not matter. What would entropy, what does that matter if things in eternity don't decay and die? Because everybody's immortal. What will that matter? That's why I say it does not matter in eternity. All the rules that we're governed by right now are the shackles that were put on us because of our sin. Because we were not meant to die. That's why we had extended lifespans, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 700 years. That's why we had those extended lifespan. And then wickedness grew throughout the earth, and the Lord himself said, I will not strive with man. And he cut lifespan down even more. For man will not live beyond 120. His days will be 120. So he shortened it and shortened it and shortened it. And then he just said, you know what? 120. That's it. I don't know anybody 120 years old. I know some that gone, I've heard of some that's gone 100, 105, 108. Okay? No one 120 right now. But even that is coming to an end. And those lifespans will be extended back out again. During the millennial period, he said that one will be 100 and will be thought of as a child. Because that will be extended. And then after the millennium, forget about an extension. Let's talk about eternity. Let's talk about immortality. No more dying. No more death. Because what is the last thing that he defeats? Death and the grave. So all these laws of science, and the laws of thermodynamics, and the laws of the universe, none of it will matter at this time. Let us wrap this up. Okay, verse 3. Start back at verse 3.
And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men.
Go ahead.
And he will dwell with them. And they shall be his people. And God himself shall be with them. And there be their God.
And be their God. This is what he desires for us, brothers and sisters. He wants to live with us. He wants to come down and be with us. But he will not be with sinful flesh. It will be the end of flesh. He will not immortalize sin. Okay? Sinful flesh will not have a place in this kingdom. New Jerusalem, by the way, coming down on the new heaven and the new earth. Okay, verse 4.
And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there shall be no more death.
No more death. So nothing dies anymore. Consider that. Nothing dies anymore. No more decay. No more burying anybody. No more tears. No more pain. No more sorrow. This is the day that we're looking for. I'm not so concerned that I have an understanding of science. Advanced or rudimentary, it doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that I get into the kingdom and that I achieve immortality. That's what I strive to enter in. And that should be your goal. Your most important, one and only goal is to be more concerned about what you will do in the next life than what you have to do in this one to get there. That's what this is about. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, go ahead,
nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain.
No more pain. Can you imagine a day like that? Can you imagine a day? No more death, no more sorrow, no more pain, no more light bill, no more phone bill, no more mortgage, no more car payments. Can you imagine a day like that? No more, get fired from work, or no more tax guy. No more of that. No more democratic system, no more parliamentary system, no more socialism, communism, no more socialism, no more of that. Imagine leaving your door wide open, no more stealing, no more of that. No more fearing for your life, no more of that. No more abortion, no more hunger, no more disease. I want to whet your appetite to what is in store for you and I if we get a proper understanding of the Lord. And not get trapped and caught up in such high intellectual thought to where we don't even need God anymore. We can outsmart ourselves right out of the kingdom. We can be too smart for the kingdom. And you don't get in because you're worried about how many degrees you have after your name. Or someone else who may have these lofty titles and you're worried about that. Well, what does Dr. So-and-so and Professor so-and-so say? Or what does the Lord say? Because Professor, Doctor, whoever did not create this world. He is not the designer. He may be able to help you understand how the world works, but he cannot help you with your salvation. Only the Lord can do that. So I wanted to whet your appetite, let you understand that there is science in the Bible, and that we have a reasonable basis as to why we believe what we believe. But I caution you not to get caught up in ever learning, but never come into the full knowledge of the truth. I caution you for that, brothers and sisters. And we'll finish this last verse. Now, he said, and God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. And there shall be no more death, neither sorrow, nor crying. Neither shall there be any more pain. Why?
For the former things are passed away.
They're all gone. They're passed away. Verse 5.
And he that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I will make all things new.
I will make all things new. This is what the Lord said, the one who sat on the throne. This is Christ. This is Yeshua, if you prefer. With Yahweh. This is the God of God, the King of Kings. He said, Behold, I make all things new. Go ahead.
And he said unto me, Write, for these words are true and faithful.
It is going to happen. This is going to happen. Brothers and sisters, I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. I hope you've gotten something from this lesson. I hope you've been edified in this lesson. I hope, in fact, that you have been comforted in the idea that you don't have to dismiss one without the other. You don't have to dismiss your faith and say, okay, I can't believe in science. Or you have science and say, well, because I can't. You can reconcile the two just as they are. And there is no need to squeeze evolution in there. There's no need. Not enough evidence to support evolution. God is a powerful and intelligent God. He did not need help from evolution to get this done. He did not need millions and billions of years to get this done. And as I said before, if he chose to do it that way, I would have no problem. But if he had to do it that way, and he could not do it in 6 literal days, then what kind of God is it? All he laid out for us was the evening and the morning was day 1. The evening and the morning was day 2. The evening and the morning was day 3. There's not much room for interpretation. Do you not believe that he could do it that quickly? I'm not one to put limitations on the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I'm not one to put limitations on the creator of all the universe. I would caution you not to do that. Now, until next time, this is the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program, and this has been Designer Genes. And until next time, search the scriptures. Improve all things. Thank you.
Hi, and welcome back to the Fountain of Israel's Bible Studies program. And this is a little bonus section of our lesson from Designer Genes. Again, that is Designer Genes. And in this particular part of the lesson, I wanted to pose a number of questions. And in that endeavor, I could imagine many questions, but I had to narrow it down to 20 questions evolutions can't answer. But before I get into the questions that I decided on, I had to wrestle with certain issues that I had with the evolutionary theory. For one, how did life originate? Evolutionist Professor Paul Davies admitted nobody knows how a mixture of lifeless chemicals spontaneously organize themselves into the first living cell. Andrew Knoll, professor of biology in Harvard, said, "We don't really know how life originated on this planet. A minimal cell needs several hundred proteins. Even if every atom in the universe were an experiment with all the correct amino acids present for every possible molecular vibration in the supposed evolutionary age of the universe, not even one average size functional protein would form. So, how did life with hundreds of proteins originate just by chemistry without intelligent design?" Or I could ask, how did the DNA code originate? The code is a sophisticated language system with letters and words where the meaning of the words is unrelated to the chemical properties of the letters. Just as the information on this page is not a product of the chemical properties of the ink or pixels on the screen in this case. What other coding system has existed without intelligent design, or that is to say, without God? How did the DNA coding system arise without being created? Or I could simply ask, how could mutations, accidental copying mistakes, DNA letters exchanged, deleted or added, genes duplicated, chromosome inversions, etc., create the huge volume of information in the DNA of living things? How could such errors create 3 billion letters of DNA information to change a microbe into a microbiologist? There is information for how to make proteins, but also for controlling their use, much like a cookbook contains the ingredients as well as the instructions for how and when to use them. One without the other is useless. Mutations are known for their destructive effects, including over 1,000 human diseases such as hemophilia. Rarely are they even helpful. But how can scrambling existing DNA information create a new biochemical pathway or nanomachines with many components to make goo to you evolution possible? How about, why is natural selection a principle recognized by creationists taught as evolution, as if it explains the origins of the diversity of life? By definition, it is a selective process, selecting from already existing information. So it's not a creative process. It might explain the survival of the fittest, that is to say, why certain genes benefit creatures more in certain environments, but not the arrival of the fittest, where the genes and creatures came from in the first place. The death of individuals not adapted to an environment and the survival of those that are suited does not explain the origin of the traits that make an organism adapted to an environment. Ergo, how do minor back and forth variations in finch beaks explain the origins of beaks or finches? How does natural selection explain, again, goo to you evolution? Or finally, I could ask, how did new biochemical pathways, which involve multiple enzymes working together in sequence, originate? I could ask a plethora of questions, but I had to limit myself to simply 20. And these are those 20 questions. First up is, where did the space for the universe come from? Second, where did matter come from? Third, where did the laws of the universe come from? Gravity, inertia, etc. How did matter get so perfectly organized? 5. Where did the energy come from to do all the organizing? When, where, why, and how did life come from dead matter? When, where, why, and how did life learn to reproduce itself? What explains the fine-tuning of the universe? Everything is working with precision and works on precision clockwork. How does one explain that? Why is the universe rational? Or why is there order in the universe? 10. Where did the genetic code come from? How do irreducibly complex enzyme chains evolve? How do we account for the origin of 116 distinct language families? How do we account for self-awareness? How is free will possible in a material universe? And on what basis can we make moral judgments? How can mutations, for example, recombining of the genetic code, create any new improved varieties? How does evolution explain symbiotic relationships? Living things look like they were designed. So how do evolutionists know that they were not designed? How did blind chemistry create mind, intelligence, meaning, altruism, and morality? I want to thank you, and let me give you one last question. One last question to round out our 20 questions that evolution does not or cannot answer. How do living fossils remain unchanged over suppose hundreds of millions of years? If evolution has changed worms into humans in the same time frame, Professor Gould wrote, the maintenance of stability within the species must be considered as a major evolutionary problem. And indeed it is. To round out my last question, it will be, why haven't horseshoe crabs evolved after supposedly 44 million years? This has been a presentation of the Fountain of Israel Bible Study Program. And until next time, search the scriptures and prove all things.